It's so fun whenever you get to look at little kids writing and you're trying to figure out what it says, but if you don't know, just ask them to read it to you. That way you don't assume anything. My name is Jessica, and I went from the classroom to 240 to help teachers pass their certification exams. And today, I'm gonna help you. This video is gonna prepare you for the Praxis Core Writing exam, and that's test code 5723. This video is gonna cover 3 things: what's on the test and how it's organized, the most likely concepts that'll be on the test, and then at the end, we'll look at a few practice questions. All right, you ready? Let's go. So the Praxis Core Writing exam consists of 2 overarching categories. They are text types, purpose and production, and language and research skills for writing. Category 1 is worth 60% of your total score, and Category 2 is worth 40%. For this exam, you'll answer 40 selected response questions, so multiple choice, and 2 constructed response questions, or CRQs for short. Those are the essay questions. While we're on the subject, let's just go ahead and talk about CRQs now. The CRQs are housed under Category 1. You'll have 2 different essay questions to respond to. The argumentative essay asks you to draw from personal experience or from your opinion in support of a specific claim. You use examples to support that argument. The source-based essay, also known as an informative or an explanatory essay, asks you to draw information from 2 provided texts in order to identify and examine both sides of a given issue. In short, in the argumentative essay, you'll pick a side, whereas in the source-based essay, you won't. These are equally weighted, and you're given 30 minutes for each one. Your audience is made up of experienced teachers, so make sure your writing is targeted to educated adults and not to students. Let's go over the argumentative essay first. You'll be given an opinionated statement. Then you'll produce an essay in which you use evidence and details to either agree or disagree with that statement. For example, you could be presented with a prompt that argues that animal testing is cruel and should be banned. Notice that this prompt supports a clear position. It's up to you to decide whether or not you agree with that position and then clearly articulate your stance in writing. A big tip here is to write a strong thesis statement. It's pretty much the most important sentence in the argumentative essay. Your thesis should communicate the focus of the essay and your rationales or your reasons that will support the focus. It should be your point of view and be a statement, never written as a question. And make sure it's clear and direct. You can follow this formula: your stance, because rationale 1, and rationale 2. For example, in response to that prompt about animal testing, your thesis statement could be, I agree with the statement that animal testing should be banned because it causes pain and suffering, and technological advances have created better alternatives. Then, each of those reasons you stated in your thesis will become a focus of a body paragraph. Now, the best way to prepare for this is to respond to a practice prompt. And I've got one for you right now. Here's your prompt. You can pause to think about how you'd answer or even practice writing a thesis statement. Now I'll show you a modeled response. For this example, I'm going to decide to agree with the prompt. But don't worry, you won't be graded on which side you take. It's how you compose and organize your argument that matters. Here's my thesis statement. Notice that I've clearly taken a stance. I've also supported it with one rationale, which will become the focus of my first body paragraph, and a second rationale, which will be what my second body paragraph is all about. Here's how I flesh that out in a complete essay. I added supporting details to explain each rationale, and then I ended with a brief closing paragraph that restated or summarized my position in different words. So that takes care of the argumentative essay. Now it's time to talk about the source-based essay. You're going to get 2 passages about the same topic. You'll need to summarize the concerns expressed in both of the passages. For example, you may be presented with 2 passages that address the cost of oil. You're going to read those 2 passages and identify the main points presented in them. And you still don't pick a side. You just need to show that you can pick out key information from those readings and then communicate it clearly. That's not too bad, right? Now, we don't have time to practice a source-based essay here in this video, but I have one really important tip. Now, when you're writing about the points made in each passage, you'll want to include a few examples or quotations from the passages in your essay. This means you need citations. You don't need to worry about proper MLA citation, but you do need to show that you know how to avoid plagiarism. Here's what you do. If you're including the actual wording of a phrase or sentence from the passage, put it in quotation marks. Write in your sentence which author or passage the quote is coming from. Like this example. If one of the given passages was titled "Global Warming Won't Wait for Us," and the author's last name was Ryan, I could write, in her article, "Global Warming Won't Wait for Us," Ryan recalled that the experience was terrifying, yet eye-opening. I clearly stated where I got that quote from. Another option is to just use the quotation and put the author's name at the end of the sentence in parentheses, like this. It really doesn't matter which way you do it, and you can really use it both ways throughout your essay. As long as you try to show where the quote is coming from, you're going to be good to go. And that's the source-based essay. Now you know what to expect for the CRQ section. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the selected response portion of the Praxis Core Writing exam. In addition to the 2 CRQs, Category 1 also includes between 6 and 12 selected response questions. For these, you'll need to recognize ways to strengthen a passage through revising and editing. And good news, I have some more tips in my back pocket all about this. The first one is to reorganize the writing to create a logical flow. Check that writing to ensure the sentences and paragraphs build on each other in the best order. For example, in a chronological text, all information should be in order by date. Also, make sure to remove details that do not support the main idea. For example, a paragraph discussing the invention of the smallpox vaccine might be confused by details about the invention of antibiotics. Remove details that are relevant, but they distract from the main idea. If the entire paragraph was about sharks as ocean predators, a sentence about the movie Jaws would most likely be an unnecessary supporting detail, even though it seems on topic. Let's move on to Category 2. The language and research skills for writing is where the majority of your selected response questions are going to come from. Expect to see between 28 and 34. Language skills accounts for the bulk of this category. You'll correct errors in sentences regarding grammar, which will be adjectives, adverbs, pronouns, subject-verb agreement, and verb tense. Also structure, including errors in the placement of clauses, modifiers, and also conjunctions. And then there's also word choice errors. Those are errors with expressions, confused words, or redundancy. Oh, and if a sentence doesn't have errors involving any of those things, you'll have to know how to recognize that too. Now, that might sound like a lot, because it is. And you don't need to worry. You just need to study. And 240 has you covered. Our study guide is aligned to the Praxis Core exam, so it has all the practice questions, including full-length practice tests, flashcards, and videos that you need to prepare to pass your exam with confidence. And speaking of videos, let's take a peek inside the study guide to hear more info about one of those concepts that I threw out earlier, modifiers.
A modifier is a word, phrase, or clause that adds emphasis, explanation, or detail to a sentence. Modifiers can be misplaced or dangling. A misplaced modifier is in the wrong place in the sentence. The child ate a cold plate of spaghetti for lunch. Cold modifies plate in this sentence. The child ate a plate of cold spaghetti for lunch. Now, cold modifies spaghetti. Placement matters.
I just love our videos. Now, before we see some practice questions, let's discuss the other key concept in this category, research skills. You'll need to recognize appropriate research skills, including assessing credibility of sources, recognizing elements of a citation, recognizing effective strategies for a particular task, and evaluating the relevance of information. Let's dig into credible sources. Credible sources are ones that the reader can trust. The information presented in them can be backed up with evidence. To determine whether or not a source is credible, ask yourself who, what, where, and when. Who wrote it? Determine whether or not the author has a known agenda or bias. What are the key claims? Make sure there's evidence provided to support them. Where is the source from? Credible sources are typically from well-known, reputable publications. When was it written? The information could potentially be outdated by more current research. Peer-reviewed publications are some of the most credible out there. Peer review is the evaluation of new work by other experts in the field before it's published. This process ensures the quality and validity of the source. And that takes care of some of the essential need-to-knows from both categories. Now that we've gone over some of the big concepts from the Praxis Core Writing, let's look at some practice selected response questions to show you how those concepts could appear on the test. Remember way back when we talked about revising passages? Let's look at how that's reflected in a question. For the next 30 years after the founding of the first mission in 1769, the grasp of Spain on California was assured. Men who could do, suffer, and endure occupied the land. They made their mistakes in judgment and in methods, but the strong fiber of the pioneer was there. The time of pioneering came to an end, and the new age of material prosperity began. The original Padres were almost without exception zealous, devoted to poverty, uplifted by a fanatic desire to further their cause. The original Spanish temporal leaders were in general able, energetic, courageous, and not afraid of work or fearful of disaster. At the end of that period, however, things began to suffer a change. Evils of various sorts crept in. Okay, so now we need to decide what change could improve the logical order of the paragraph. Sentence 4 marks a transition between the time that came before and the time that came after, so this is our best choice. We should move sentence 4 so that it comes after sentence 7. Let's use our language skills and take a look at a sentence to see what kind of correction it needs. It's cold outside. Put on a coat so you don't get frostbite. Now, I have to admit, at first I thought there was no error in the sentence. But with the immediate answer feedback feature in the study guide, I can see I need to correct my misconception and try that again. This sentence does contain an error, and it's here in choice B. This is an example of a comma splice where two independent clauses are put together by a comma when they should be connected by a semicolon, a period, or a conjunction. All right, now for a research question. In the citation above, the inclusion of United States Holocaust Memorial Museum as the first item listed tells us this is the answer we want. When an individual author is not known, the organization can be used in its place for citation purposes. Whew! All right, now that's just a small sliver of practice questions to give you an idea about how these concepts are assessed on the test. And congratulations, you finished the video. If you found it helpful, give it a like. There's still plenty more to learn. Did you know that thousands of teachers have passed their certification exams using our study guides? If you really want to make sure that you're prepared for the Praxis Core Writing exam, take the next step and subscribe to the 240 Study Guide. It has hours of videos, so you can watch or listen while you're doing chores. It's test aligned, so you know precisely what you need to study. And it has hundreds of practice questions, so you can be sure you're ready. And it has a money-back guarantee. So click the link below right now to get started.